Hi, my name is Virgilia Santiago, and today I'm going to be talking about male victims and domestic violence. My thesis today states domestic violence. What do you think about when you hear these words? Did an image of a man beating on a woman come to mind? Domestic violence does not always start out with physical altercations, though it can. The abuse can be very subtle, and the control slowly increasing over time. In many cases, domestic violence starts out small as a verbal altercation back and forth. According to Patricia Evans in her book, The Abusive Relationship, states in a verbally abusive relationship, the partner learns to tolerate abuse without realizing it and loses self-esteem. Once a person loses self-esteem in a relationship, they're opening a door for the other person to have control. In verbal altercations, something said is usually interpreted differently and escalates the other person to physically harming their partner. But going back to my opening statement, the image of a man beating on a woman, if that's the first thing that came to mind when you heard the words domestic violence, have you ever thought that society has influenced us into that exact thinking pattern? Though society is rightfully correct when it comes to domestic violence, male do tend to usually be the abuser, as reports can account for these statistics. However, males too are equally victimized by a female domestic partner. According to domestichealthshelter.org, almost 48.8% of all men have dealt with psychological aggression by an intimate partner. Sheila Adams states in her paper, Women Who Are Violent, that violent women are overlooked. As of 2002, during the past 3 years, women have been identified as the offenders in nearly 40% of initial cases of spousal abuse. Hearing that may be shocking to some, because society gives us the idea, due to patriarchy, that men are entitled to a line of power and control, and women are to be inferior of them. But according to Christopher Barber, his paper, Domestic Violence Against Men, men feel unable to define their experiences of domestic violence because of the perception that society has of men as being physically and emotionally stronger than women. They feel society perceives these victims as wimps. Just as women are scared to accuse their abuser in fear of their life, male victims are scared to talk about being abused or accuse their partner in fear of what others may think. According to Christopher Barber, Domestic Violence Against Men, many men that did report that they were being abused, these male victims were being ignored by police, and when they did report domestic violence, they experienced discrimination and prejudice. This action is uncalled for because, male or female, we are all equal. No one should be victimized under any circumstances, especially from authoritative figures. Due to the fear of rejection by professionals, men are also failing to get the proper health care and treatment. According to Christopher Barber in his paper, Domestic Violence Against Men, few men are willing to admit that they are being abused and therefore do not seek the professional help because of fear of not being supported. Mayo Clinic states, male victims of domestic violence might confront a shortage of resources when seeking help. Nevertheless, no male victim of this type of violence should feel unprotected, rejected, or ridiculed by society. But instead, they should be helped, supported, and accepted. So in conclusion, due to society's influence in the way we think, male victims of domestic violence does not get fairly acknowledged, but rather seen or thought of as a taboo. They get ridiculed, ignored, rejected from society, as well as professionals. These men are left to feel unprotected and helpless, and shy away from seeking the help and support. But they are just as equally as important as any female victim. Society needs to take off their blindfold and start seeing these victims for who they truly are. Nothing more than a human being. Thank you. And this is my audience. It's my mom and my stepdad.
Good job.